All right, so what was Amsterdam like in the 40s and 50s?
Well, in the 40s was during the war. The war ended in 1945.
Yeah.
So in the first half of the 40s, it was very dangerous. Grandpa at one point was coming home, and the Germans had blocked off both ends of the street, and they grabbed 10 or 12 males and shot them. And the reason they did that was because a German soldier was found in one of the canals, which happened quite regularly. So he happened to grab one of the doors, and it hadn't closed because all the doors are, it's all apartments, right? So you're 3 stories high. And to open the door, you pull a string, and it did different levels, and that unlocks it. So it just so happened that the door hadn't quite closed, otherwise he wouldn't have made it. So that was the 40s, and 45 to 50 was, for me, it was pretty regular. You know, as a little kid, you don't really notice anything different. There was a lot of work to be done. So my dad was busy as a carpenter.
Yeah.
So that was it for the 40s. In the 50s, we don't know, because the 50s we were here. We came here in June of 1951.
So mostly dangerous for that first part.
Well, the first half was very dangerous.
And then when did you come to Canada?
June 15th of 1951. And the ship was called the Volendam.
The what?
Volendam. Volendam. And it was the last cruise that that ship made. It was a troop carrier during the war. And it was the last crossing that it made. And about 7 years ago, I met a man that was on the same boat as that one, purely by accident, when I had to go up to Fort McMurray and take a look at the arena in Fort McMurray. Mm-hmm. And the guy that was president of the oil barons up there, hockey team, they're having a big tournament, so he wanted, they needed acoustical treatment done on it, and I'd looked at it a year before, but just in pictures. So he phoned me, he says, I'm going to push. I said, well, I got to come up and take a look at it. He says, okay. He says, how far are you from the airport? I said, about 5 minutes. He says, okay, I'll call you back. So he called me back about 10 minutes later, and he said, go to the Air Canada counter, and they'll have a ticket there for you. And they held the plane, and I got there, and I got up to Fort McMurray. I got off the plane and met the guy. We started talking. Obviously, he's Dutch.
Yeah.
And my first question was, so when did you come over? He says, 1951. I says, I said, you know when? He said, yeah, in June. He said, do you remember when in June? He said, yeah, the 15th. I said, you were on the Volendam with me. Huh? That's how many years later? 50 years later?
That's pretty cool. And then, how is Canada different than Amsterdam?
Canada is different that it's a wide open space. Instead of living in, literally everything is apartments. That's all there is in Amsterdam itself. There is no individual houses. There's the only green grass you'll see is in places like Vondel Park. Park areas within Amsterdam. Everything else, it's all concrete. There's a sidewalk. There's the apartment. And we're on the 2nd floor. So everything is very much like that. You don't see the greenery. Where you come here, everything is wide open and everything is really far apart. My dad had a friend who came to Canada, and we'd been here 10, 12 years. And his friend came to Canada, and his son lived in Thunder Bay. And he said, his dad said, Nico is here. We want to go see Nico. And the guy says, okay, sure. So he said, well, when do you want to go? Well, Sunday. I'd like to be there Sunday. So on Thursday, he said to his dad, okay, Dad, we're leaving. Where are we going? To see Nico. Well, no, we're going to go Sunday. He says, yeah, if we leave today, we'll be there on Sunday. No concept of distance.
Really?
you want to get a sense of space, this is Edmonton. And this is Calgary. Holland sits in between there with little space between Calgary and the end of Holland.
Huh.
That's how small it is.
That's tiny.
Very, very small. As a matter of fact, I would say that in size, I'm trying to think, probably it's smaller than Newfoundland. It's probably more in the size of New Brunswick, maybe Nova Scotia. Yeah, it's small.
How big was Amsterdam?
With, as far as population is concerned, at that time I think it was somewhere around 7 million people. And how big is Amsterdam? Edmonton is massive compared to Amsterdam. So you could take, if you go from the river, go this way, even that would be probably overextending the size of Amsterdam.
Really? So really, really small.
Yeah.
Back in like, so you left in 51. Back in like the 40s and 50s, what was like a typical like weekend? Because you obviously were you in school?
Weekends?
Were you in school back when you were?
Yeah, I was in school.
Okay, so then weekends.
We'd get on, my dad would put us on a bicycle and we'd go for a bike ride, or we'd go to Fingal Park was a close one, several big park areas, and that's what we did. Went to the park.
What about like, how old were you when the war was on?
When what?
When the war was happening.
I was born in 44, the war ended in 45.
Oh, okay. So irrelevant.
Yeah. I was 7 years old when I came over here. But I remember quite vividly, probably from the time that I was 3 to the time that I was 7. Certainly 4 to 7, I vividly remember. The last time we went back, we went to take a look at the apartment that we were in. Mm-hmm. Walked right to it and exactly where it was.
Really? Was anyone living there?
Yeah, oh yeah. In Amsterdam, you queue. In most cases, when people marry, they have to live with their parents, and then what they do is they apply for living space. It's all controlled. It's all government controlled. But yeah, and if you get a space, you find an apartment or something. My aunt and uncle lived in the same space for, oh good heavens, they were there for 40 years. And he was head of homicide for the Red Light District for the last 10 years that he was in the police force.
And then like, once you're in Canada, what was a typical weekend?
Well, first few years certainly didn't do a whole heck of a lot. It wasn't, mainly because dollars and cents were a factor. When they came over here, they had $200 in their pocket. So lots of work, and my dad had taken up extra work already. And then when he bought that 1939 Plymouth, then we started doing outside trips outside the city. Went to Jasper a couple of times. I mean, the awe of seeing the mountains for the first time. Remember, Holland is flat.
Yeah.
Perfectly flat. There was nothing. So suddenly coming here and being able to actually go to the mountains was quite an awesome treat.
Yeah.
Then it wasn't that long after actually that my dad bought a lot out at Lac Renan. Camp Encounters at this end of the lake. He was at this end of the lake, right across. After that, every weekend we went out there. Now, if it rained, we never quite made it to the property because the roads were so muddy that we still have pictures of, I think Uncle Alec has pictures of us getting stuck with jacks and pushing each other out, but it was so wonderful to own property.
Yeah.
So that's what we do. And then they kind of cleaned the road up a little bit, but we started built a big A-frame or a small A-frame cabin. That was It was his world.
What did happen to that cabin?
It was sold. Grandpa got to the point he couldn't climb the stairs anymore because it was sitting high on a bluff, and the way down he built stairs going all the way down, but it was a long way down, and we got to the point that climbing up and down the stairs became too much for him. So at that point he decided that he would sell it.
So then can you remember like a good story that I could use for this from Amsterdam?
And from Amsterdam?
Yeah.
You want a good story, not a bad story.
Well, it doesn't matter.
Like
Just
a good
the one that you want. Like an interesting story, not like one time we went down to the park and I found a snail, right?
Oh, well, I used to go at the end of the block, MacArthurstraat, and you have MacArthur Plain, which is a big open area where the streetcars would turn around, they'd go back downtown. We were close to the edge of the city at that point in time. And I think I was 6 years old, and I went down to MacArthur Plain, and then there's stores. There's a grocery store. I still remember the stores that are there, particularly the grocery store. Mm-hmm. And I shouldn't say the grocery store, more vegetables and that sort of thing. Anyways,
yeah. So
I wandered out of MacArthur Plain, and I put a penny, found a penny, and I put a marble in this streetcar track. So then the streetcar would come by, and then I went running back to the sidewalk, which is a ways, and a motorcycle hit me. So I was kind of spread eagle on the ground, and they patched me up, and there's no ambulances in those days. Pigeon carriers maybe, but no ambulances. So. Anyways, I got home and I really got what for.
What happened to the
streetcar? I remember that one.
What happened to the streetcar?
Well, nothing. It just ran over the thing.
No.
But I didn't dare go back out and look for the penny because I figured that was going to be, I'd really be in trouble then.
Oh, yeah. What about in Canada?
You're out in Canada?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, gosh. Well, I don't know if you want to break this down, but when we lived on 100, and we were on 124th Street in Princess Elizabeth Avenue, right up by the airport.
Yeah.
That was the first house. We were there for, I think, a year. Then we moved to Jasper Place, because Jasper Place was a lot cheaper, but Jasper Place was not part of Edmonton at that time. And the outhouses were still outhouses. There was no sewage.
Okay.
So in the wintertime, you really had to freeze your hiney off. But as a youngster at that point in time, Halloween would come along, and we played all kinds of little nasty tricks. One famous one was to move the outhouse back a foot or 2 feet. And one could then slip into it. The other one was to push.
The buffalo chicken sandwich?
Yeah, that's him.
And a small pepperoni. You're welcome, enjoy.
Another one was to tip the outhouse over. We did it all on Halloween, but there was a guy in the thing. He screamed when we tipped it over. We ran like hell. So, it was cold, but it wasn't that cold. He wasn't going to freeze out there, and we sure as hell weren't going to stick around.
That would suck.
No, I'm a gentle soul. I didn't get into too much trouble.
Just tipping outhouses over with people still in them.
Oh, but everybody did that. That was just sort of an in thing at the time.